So my first time ever riding an Uber, I can recall my driver being a middle-aged, very attractive Caucasian guy. But I could not help but notice this black hooded coat that was on the driver's seat, on the back of it, that was covered in what appeared to be animal hair. And so a part of me, I absolutely love people. I love getting to know new people. Another part of me was bothered by this dog hair or animal hair that was so close to my purse. So I started a conversation, right? And so I asked him, I said, what else do you do besides drive Uber full time? And he told me that that's all that he did, but that he always wanted to be a vet. I was excited about the answer because it explained the hair on the coat. So I started to proceed in the conversation, and I asked him, I said, how many pets do you have? And he explained to me that he had a cat, a dog, and a possum. So of course my eyes are really big, and then I'm leaned in the conversation, and my response was, a possum? Like a rat possum? Like a rodent, right? And so he responds and he says, yes, a possum. So I said, okay, now you got to explain to me how this happened. How did this possum become your pet? So he goes on to explain to me how his cat would often run away. And so he put an open cage outside of his door, so that way when his cat would return, it would have a safe place of comfort to come back to. So his cat did return, but also for 30 days consistently, this possum showed up. So my Uber driver and this possum formed a relationship, and then he ended up welcoming him into his home. Now my eyes are still big, because see, my understanding or experience with the possum is to see it going through my trash in my backyard. And then I also know that a possum has natural defenses that causes it to run, growl, urinate, and to often play dead. So now my mind is blown. So now I'm trying to figure out how in the world was this possum able to coexist in an environment with a human and two other pets? So of course I asked, right? And so I said, if you don't mind explaining to me, how did you stop this possum from being a possum? And his answer was something very powerful. So he looked at me and he confidently said, I never tried to change the possum, I simply changed the environment. So when I left that day, I went home, and for the rest of the day, I could not stop thinking about this experience. And I asked myself two very important questions. The first one was, how in the world did this possum have so much impact on this human? I mean, I came to my friend's house often. They never tried to change the environment for me, right? Let's be real. And then second question was, what made this possum feel so entitled to show up consistently? See, entitlement is the fact of having the right to have something. But I believe that when you get convinced and that you believe that you have the right to have something, that it empowers you to show up, and by showing up, you will be destined to go up. See, in our society, in our culture, entitlement is talked about as a bad thing. You hear people often say delusional, or they have a false sense of entitlement, or there's an unearned expectation. But who can deem your belief unrealistic or delusional? See, now I believe that if this possum would have went back and talked to all his other possum friends and said, hey, possum friend, I have plans to go build a relationship with this human. And eventually, he's going to welcome me into his home. And guess what? I'm going to become his pet. And now all my needs are going to be met with no sweat. Wow. Come on now. So now I no longer have to dig through the trash. I believe that if this possum would have went and told this to his other possum friends, they would have deemed him to be delusional. They would have told him that he was unrealistic, that it was an unearned expectation. But we now know what they would have deemed to be delusional became his reality. So like that possum, I attempted suicide. I took over 100 different medications. I came from the inner city, nice town, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, from a broken family. I was divorced, and I walked away from a toxic relationship with 2 small, beautiful little girls, $0 to my name, a weekend full of clothes, no car, and no family in sight. But I stand here today because I was like that possum. And despite my circumstances, despite my upbringing, despite my financial status, despite what other people told me may have been delusional, I showed up consistently like this possum. And because of that, I stand here as a successful CEO, employing people, giving people jobs, and helping transform lives of people all over the United States, changing their lives one bank account at a time. So I encourage you all today that despite what your credit score may look like, despite what your upbringing is, despite what your bank account says, despite what statistics may say, despite what your family may say, that if you consistently show up every day like this possum, and if you believe that you have a right to be there, that you too will be destined to go up. But just make sure you're willing to earn it. Thank you.